The diplomatic station New Horizon floated in space like a giant metal flower. Its 12 arms stretched out in different directions, each one designed for a different alien species. Jake Morrison stood at the main viewing window and watched ships arrive from across the galaxy. Today would change everything for humanity. Jake wore his best diplomatic uniform, but his hand still shook a little. As Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council, he carried the hopes of 8 billion humans. The other species had been part of this council for hundreds of years. Humanity was the newcomer trying to prove they belonged. Ambassador Morrison, called his aide, Lucy Carter, the Karathi delegation has arrived. Jake turned to watch a massive black ship dock with the station. The Karathi were warriors, 7 feet tall with thick armor-like skin. Their ship looked like a weapon, all sharp edges and dark metal. Jake had read that they could tear apart a tank with their bare hands. Next came the Zilani vessel, white and smooth like an egg. The Zilani were the galaxy's greatest thinkers. They had created mathematics that could predict the future and technology that seemed like magic. Their brains were 3 times larger than human brains. The Vexari ship arrived last, covered in blinking lights and moving parts. The Vexari controlled most of the galaxy's trade routes. They could calculate the value of entire star systems in their heads and remember every deal they had ever made. "Nervous?" asked a quiet voice behind Jake. Jake turned to see Ben Phillips, one of the station's maintenance workers. Ben was in his 40s, average height, with graying hair and calm eyes. He had been a cook in the Navy before taking this job fixing things around the station. "A little," Jake admitted. "We're about to meet with the most powerful species in the galaxy, and I'm not sure what we can offer them." Ben nodded and continued checking the environmental controls. "I'm sure you'll figure it out," he said simply, then moved on to the next panel. The first meeting took place in the station's central chamber. It was a huge round room with sections designed for each species. The lighting could change colors, the gravity could be adjusted, and the air could be filtered differently for each delegation. Jake entered with his team and felt very small. The Karathi ambassador, General Thax, stood like a mountain of muscle and armor. His scarred face showed decades of battle. The Zilani representative, Dr. Quinn, had pale blue skin and huge black eyes that seemed to see everything. The Vexari delegate, Trader Zex, constantly moved his 6 arms, calculating something on multiple data pads. "Humans," General Thax spoke in a voice like grinding stone. "We have heard of your species. You wage war, but you are weak. You think, but you are slow. You trade, but you are poor. Why should the Council accept you?" Jake stood up straighter. "General Thax, humanity may not be the strongest or the smartest, but we have other qualities. We adapt quickly to new situations. We work together well. We never give up when facing challenges." Dr. Quinn spoke next, her voice soft but cold. "Adaptation is just poor planning. Cooperation is what weak species do when they cannot succeed alone. Persistence without intelligence is merely stubborn." Trader Zex looked up from his calculations. "Your species has no significant trade networks, no rare resources, and no economic advantages. The cost of including you in council operations would exceed any possible benefits by 347%. Jake felt sweat on his forehead. Surely there must be something valuable about diversity, about bringing new perspectives to old problems. "We have perspectives," General Thax growled. "We have the perspective of strength. When problems arise, we solve them with power. We have the perspective of knowledge," Dr. Quinn added. "When problems arise, we solve them with understanding. We have the perspective of efficiency," Trader Zex said. "When problems arise, we solve them with optimal resource allocation." The other species representatives nodded in agreement. The Thraxians, who looked like walking trees, spoke about their connection to natural systems. The Nexari, with their crystal-like bodies, discussed their mastery of energy manipulation. Each species had one thing they did better than anyone else. "So what do humans do best?" asked Delegate Vor, a Thraxian whose bark-like skin creaked when he moved. Jake opened his mouth, but no words came out. What did humans do best? They were not the strongest fighters, the smartest thinkers, or the best traders. They had no special powers, no unique technology, no rare abilities. We survive," Jake said finally. "Humans survive in any environment. We learn from our mistakes. We help each other." The alien delegates looked at each other. Some made sounds that might have been laughter. "Many species survive," General Thax said. "Survival is not special. Learning from mistakes is just basic intelligence, Dr. Quinn added. Helping each other is economically inefficient unless it produces measurable returns. Trader's X concluded. Jake sat down feeling defeated. The meeting continued for 2 more hours, but it was clear the other species were not impressed. They spoke about their own achievements, their contributions to the galaxy, their unique gifts. Humanity seemed to have none of these things. During a break, Jake walked to a quiet corner of the station. He found Ben Phillips there, adjusting something on a wall panel. How did it go? Ben asked without looking up from his work. Badly, Jake said. They want to know what makes humans special, and I don't have a good answer. Ben finished his work and turned around. Maybe being special isn't the point. What do you mean? Ben shrugged. I don't know much about diplomacy, but I've worked with people from different places my whole life. Navy ships, construction crews, now this station. The guys who always talked about how special they were usually caused the most problems. But we need to show them we're worth including in their council. Maybe, Ben said. Or maybe we just need to show them who we are. Jake wanted to ask what Ben meant, but his aide Lucy was calling him back to the meeting. As he walked away, he saw Ben heading toward the kitchen areas with a thoughtful expression. The afternoon session went no better than the morning. Each species continued to demonstrate their superiority in their chosen field. The Karathi showed combat simulations. The Zalani presented mathematical proofs. The Vexari displayed trade projections. When it was humanity's turn again, Jake did his best to explain human achievements. He talked about their art, their literature, their scientific discoveries, but everything he mentioned another species had done better, faster, or more efficiently. As the day ended, Jake felt like humanity's chance of joining the Galactic Council was slipping away. The other species were polite but clearly unimpressed. Tomorrow would be the final day of meetings, and Jake still had no idea how to prove that humanity belonged among the stars. Ben Phillips walked through the station's corridors after the diplomatic meetings ended. His job was to keep everything running smoothly, which meant he went everywhere and saw everything. Most people ignored maintenance workers, but that was fine with Ben. It let him observe without being noticed. He had watched the first day of meetings from the back of the room while checking air filters. The alien delegates looked impressive, but Ben noticed things others missed. He had spent 20 years in the Navy learning to read people, and aliens were not so different from humans in some ways. General Thax, the Karathi warrior, kept flexing his hands during discussions. Ben recognized the signs of stress eating from his Navy days. The general's species was proud and strong, but Thax was clearly uncomfortable in the diplomatic setting. He kept looking toward the food stations, then forcing himself to look away. Dr. Quinn, the Zalani scientist, spoke confidently about her species' intelligence. But Ben saw how she positioned herself in the corner of the room away from others. Her large eyes darted around nervously when too many people looked at her. Social situations made her anxious despite her brilliant mind. Trader Zek seemed the most comfortable, constantly working on his calculations. But Ben noticed the small tremors in his 6 arms after long periods of work. The Vexari delegate was exhausted from trying to optimize everything constantly. His efficiency came at the cost of rest. After his shift ended, Ben went to the station's main kitchen. It was designed to prepare food for all 12 species, with different sections for different dietary needs. Ben had learned about alien nutrition when he started working here. He found it interesting how each species had such specific requirements. The Karathi needed high-protein foods with certain minerals to keep their armor-like skin healthy. The Zalani required precise combinations of nutrients to fuel their large brains. The Vexari needed frequent small meals with quick-burning energy sources to maintain their constant mental activity. Ben started preparing small portions of food for each delegation. He did not plan to make a grand gesture or solve diplomatic problems. He simply saw people who were stressed and far from home, and he knew how to help with that. For General Thax, Ben prepared a traditional Karathi protein blend, but he added earth spices that would help with digestion and stress. He had learned in the Navy that warriors often had stomach problems from holding tension in their bodies. For Dr. Quinn, he made a Zalani brain food paste, but he adjusted the ratios slightly. Navy cooks learned to modify recipes for people with different needs. He could tell from watching her that she needed nutrients for anxiety as much as intelligence. For Trader Zex, He prepared small energy cubes, but he made them with ingredients that would provide steady energy instead of quick bursts. The trader was burning himself out with his constant calculations. Ben prepared similar meals for all the delegations, thinking about what each individual seemed to need, rather than just what their species normally ate. He was not trying to impress anyone. This was just what he did. He noticed when people were struggling and tried to help. He packaged each meal simply and wrote small notes. For General Thax, thought you might be hungry. Station maintenance. For Dr. Quinn, this might help with the stress. A friend. For Trader Zex, something to keep your energy steady. Ben. Late that evening, Ben quietly delivered the meals to each delegation's quarters. He did not knock or announce himself. He simply left the packages where they would be found and returned to his own small room. The next morning, Ben was checking atmospheric readings in the corridor when he saw General Thax emerge from his quarters. The big warrior looked around carefully, then approached Ben. "You are the maintenance human," Thax said in his deep voice. "Yes, sir," Ben replied, not stopping his work. "The food. You prepared it," Ben nodded. "I hope it was okay. I'm not sure I got the spice levels right for your species." General Thax was quiet for a long moment. "It was good, very good." "How did you know to prepare it that way?" Ben shrugged. "You looked stressed during the meetings yesterday. Food helps with stress. You watched me. Part of my job is noticing when things are not running smoothly. That includes people." General Thax made a sound that might have been laughter. "In all my years of diplomatic missions, no one has prepared food specifically for my stress levels." "Really? That seems like something diplomats would think of." "Diplomats think of many things. They do not think of whether their guests are comfortable or well-fed unless it serves a political purpose." Ben finished his atmospheric reading and moved to the next panel. "Well, you've got another day of meetings. I'll have something ready for tonight if you want." General Thax watched Ben work for a moment. "You do not want anything in return?" "For cooking, no, sir. It's just cooking." Later that morning, Ben encountered Dr. Quinn in one of the quieter sections of the station. She was staring out a window at the stars, her large black eyes reflecting the distant light. "The food last night," she said, without turning around. "The nutritional ratios were mathematically perfect for reducing neural stress while maintaining cognitive function." "I'm glad it helped," Ben said, checking a nearby environmental control. "How did you calculate the precise measurements? Even our own nutritionists rarely achieve such accuracy." Ben paused in his work. "I didn't calculate anything. I just watched you during the meeting and thought about what might help." Dr. Quinn turned to look at him. "You observed my behavioral patterns and extrapolated my nutritional needs without mathematical analysis?" "I guess. You seemed anxious, so I made something that might calm you down without making you sleepy. That should be impossible without extensive data modeling." Ben smiled slightly. "I've been cooking for nervous people for 20 years. Navy ships, construction sites, places where people are stressed and tired. You learn to read what people need." Dr. Quinn studied him with the intensity she usually reserved for mathematical problems. "This is fascinating. You process complex social and biological data intuitively." "I just pay attention," Ben said. That afternoon, Ben was repairing a wall panel when Trader Zex found him. The Vexari delegate looked less frantic than usual, his 6 arms moving more slowly and smoothly. "The energy cubes you provided," Zex said, his voice buzzing slightly. "The sustained release formula was 23% more efficient than our standard nutrition packs." "Good to hear," Ben said, not looking up from his work. "How did you determine the optimal metabolic rate for my physiology?" "You were working too hard yesterday. I could see your hands shaking. Figured you needed something to keep you going without wearing you out." Zex's arms paused their constant motion. "You made a medical assessment based on visual observation alone?" "Not medical. Just human. Well, I guess alien too. When someone's pushing themselves too hard, their body shows it. Same with any species. This is economically significant information. Have you considered marketing these nutritional modifications?" Ben finished his repair and packed up his tools. "I'm a maintenance worker who likes to cook. That's about it." As Ben walked away, he could hear Zex calculating something rapidly, but for once it sounded excited rather than stressed. Word about the mysterious meals began to spread quietly through the alien delegations. Ben continued his normal work, unaware that his simple gesture was creating ripples throughout the diplomatic mission. He had no grand plan or hidden agenda. He simply saw beings who were far from home and under pressure, and he did what felt natural. He took care of them. The second day of diplomatic meetings began differently than the first. Ben noticed it while checking the air circulation systems in the main conference room. The alien delegates seemed more relaxed, less rigid in their postures. General Thax still looked intimidating, but his hands were not clenched into fists. Dr. Quinn sat slightly closer to the others instead of hiding in the corner. Trader Zex's arms moved in smoother patterns, calculating at a steady pace rather than the frantic speed of yesterday. Jake Morrison stood at the front of the room, preparing for another day of trying to prove humanity's worth to the galaxy. He looked tired and worried. Ben had seen that expression on many young officers during his Navy years. The weight of responsibility pressing down on someone who cared too much. Today we will discuss specific contributions each species makes to the Galactic Council, announced Delegate Vor, the tree-like Thoraxian who served as the meeting coordinator. We will begin with military capabilities. General Thax stood, his massive frame casting shadows across the room. The Karathi provide security for 73 star systems. Our fleets patrol trade routes and protect against raiders. Our ground forces have not lost a battle in 200 years. He activated a holographic display showing Karathi warships and battle statistics. The numbers were impressive. Millions of soldiers, thousands of ships, victories spanning centuries. Jake took notes frantically, trying to think of how humanity's small military could compare. Earth had one modest space fleet and armies that had never fought aliens. How could he present that as valuable? Dr. Quinn presented next, her soft voice somehow carrying clearly through the large room. The Zalani advance galactic knowledge through scientific research. We have solved 17 fundamental mathematical theorems, created faster-than-light communications, and developed medical treatments used by all council species. Her holographic display showed elegant equations and technological marvels. Medical devices that could heal any injury, communication systems that connected the entire galaxy, energy sources that never ran out. Trader Zex followed with economic data that made Jake's head spin. The Vixari manage 89% of galactic trade. Our logistics networks deliver goods to 47 billion beings across 600 star systems. Our efficiency improvements have increased galactic prosperity by 340% over the past century. The display showed trade routes crisscrossing the galaxy like a web of light. Cargo ships, space stations, and economic projections that reduced entire civilizations to numbers and profit margins. Each species presented their contributions in turn. The Thoraxians maintained ecological balance across forest worlds. The Nexari provided clean energy from their crystal technology. The Aquari managed water and atmospheric systems for colony worlds. When Jake's turn came, he felt very small. Humanity offers potential, he began weakly. We are new to space travel, but we learn quickly. We have diverse cultures and creative approaches to problems. The silence that followed was painful. Jake tried to continue, talking about human art and literature, about their history of overcoming challenges, about their capacity for growth. But compared to the concrete achievements of other species, humanity's potential seemed meaningless. During the lunch break, Ben was in the kitchen preparing the daily meals for the station staff when General Thax appeared in the doorway. The massive warrior looked oddly uncomfortable in the domestic setting. I wanted to thank you again for last night's meal, Thax said. I slept better than I have in months. Ben looked up from cutting vegetables. Stress affects sleep. Good food helps with both. May I ask you something? Sure. General Thax stepped into the kitchen, his armor clanking softly. In the meeting, your ambassador struggles to explain what humans contribute to the galaxy. But you saw what I needed without being asked. How? Ben continued his prep work while thinking. I guess I just watch people. In the Navy, I learned that keeping people fed and comfortable was the most important job on the ship. Doesn't matter how good your weapons are if your crew is tired and stressed. But you are not responsible for feeding alien diplomats. Ben shrugged. People are people. When someone's having a hard time, you help if you can. General Thax was quiet for a long moment. The Karathi value strength above all else. But last night, your kindness was stronger than any weapon I have seen. After Thax left, Dr. Quinn appeared. She moved hesitantly as if unsure whether she was allowed in the kitchen. "I hope you don't mind the interruption," she said softly. "Not at all. You hungry?" "I was just making some of those brain food supplements you like." Dr. Quinn's large eyes widened. "You remembered my dietary preferences?" "Of course. Why wouldn't I?" Because most beings do not remember details about others unless those details serve a logical purpose." Ben handed her a small container of the supplements he had prepared. "Remembering things about people isn't logical. It's just human." "I have been thinking about our conversation yesterday," Dr. Quinn said. "You process social information in ways that should require extensive computational analysis, but you do it instinctively. This suggests a form of intelligence my species has not encountered. I think you're overthinking it. I just pay attention. But that is exactly what is remarkable. Most species, including mine, become so specialized that we lose the ability to simply notice things outside our field. You notice everything." That afternoon, Ben was adjusting the gravity settings in the Vexari section when Trader Zex approached him. "I have been calculating the economic impact of your nutritional modifications," Zex announced, his arms moving rapidly across multiple data pads. "Okay," Ben said, not sure where this was going. "By reducing my stress levels and optimizing my energy intake, you increased my calculation efficiency by 23%. If applied across all Vexari traders, this could increase galactic trade productivity by 2.7 trillion credits annually." Ben finished the gravity adjustment and turned to face the excited alien. "That's nice, I guess." "Nice? This is economically revolutionary. How did you not realize the massive financial implications?" "Because I wasn't trying to make money. I was just trying to help you feel better." Zex's arms stopped moving entirely, something Ben had never seen before. You were not seeking profit? From cooking?" "No, I just like cooking for people." "But why? What do you gain?" Ben thought about it. "I don't know. It makes me feel good when other people feel good." "Is that weird?" Zex stared at him with all 6 eyes. "Among my people, every action must have a calculable benefit. The concept of helping others without personal gain does not exist in our economic models. Maybe that's something wrong with the models, not the helping." Word continued to spread among the alien delegations about the human maintenance worker, who seemed to understand their needs better than their own species did. Conversations started in the corridors, quiet discussions about the strange human who cared about their comfort without wanting anything in return. Meanwhile, the formal negotiations continued to go poorly for humanity. Jake Morrison struggled to present his species as worthy of council membership, while the other delegates remained skeptical. They saw humans as weak, unremarkable beings with nothing special to offer the galaxy. But in the kitchens and corridors of the station, a different story was beginning to emerge. The aliens were discovering something about humanity that their advanced sciences and economic models had not prepared them for: the simple power of caring about others. Ben continued his work, unaware that his quiet acts of kindness were slowly changing how the galaxy's most powerful species viewed humanity. He was just a maintenance worker who liked to cook. But sometimes the most ordinary people create the most extraordinary changes. The third day of meetings started with tension thick enough to cut with a knife. Jake Morrison sat at the human delegation table, looking like he had not slept well. His aide Lucy shuffled through papers nervously, while the other human representatives whispered among themselves. Ben was installing new air filters near the ceiling when the session began. From his elevated position, he could see the entire room and all the delegates. The alien representatives looked more relaxed than they had 2 days ago, but their official positions had not changed. Delegate Vor, the Thoraxian coordinator, stood with his bark-like skin creaking. "We have heard presentations from all species regarding their contributions to the Galactic Council. Today we will vote on humanity's application for membership." Jake stood up, his hands trembling slightly. "Honored delegates, I know humanity may seem unremarkable compared to your great civilizations, but we offer something different. We offer fresh perspectives, new approaches to old problems, and the willingness to learn from all of you." General Thax leaned forward in his massive chair. "Ambassador Morrison, you speak of perspectives and approaches. These are vague concepts. What specific capabilities does your species possess?" "We adapt quickly to new situations," Jake replied, his voice growing stronger. "We work together across different cultures and beliefs. We never give up when facing challenges. Dr. Quinn spoke next, her soft voice carrying clearly through the room. Adaptation is simply inefficient specialization. Cooperation is what weak species do when they cannot succeed independently. Persistence without logical direction is merely stubbornness. Trader Zex looked up from his calculations. From an economic perspective, humanity offers no unique resources, technologies, or trade advantages. Your inclusion would cost the Council resources without providing measurable benefits. Jake felt the familiar despair washing over him. Surely diversity has value. Different species bring different solutions to problems. We have diversity, rumbled a delegate from the Crystari, whose body was made of living crystal. We have warriors, thinkers, traders, growers, builders, and energy shapers. What category do humans fill? Jake opened his mouth, but no words came. What category did humans fill? They were not the best at anything. They had no single defining characteristic that made them special. The room fell silent as Jake struggled to find an answer. The alien delegates waited patiently, but their expressions showed they were already making up their minds. Perhaps, said Delegate Vor slowly, humanity is simply not ready for Council membership. There is no shame in this. Many species require centuries of development before they can contribute meaningfully to galactic civilization. No, Jake said quickly. We may not be the strongest or smartest, but we have value. We have... What? Interrupted a new voice. Everyone turned to look at the speaker. It was Delegate Crix, a Theraxian known for their blunt directness. Unlike other Theraxians who spoke in careful diplomatic language, Crix said exactly what they thought. What exactly do your people contribute? Crix continued, their voice sharp as breaking wood. Every species here excels at something. The Karathi excel at warfare. The Zilani excel at science. The Vixari excel at commerce. The Crystari excel at energy manipulation. The Aquari excel at life support systems. What do humans excel at? Jake felt sweat beading on his forehead. This was the question he had been dreading, the one he could not answer satisfactorily. We excel at being human, he said weakly. That is not an answer, Crix shot back. That is circular logic. What specific ability, what unique skill, what particular strength does your species bring to this council? The other delegates murmured agreement. Jake looked around the room desperately, seeking some inspiration, some way to explain humanity's value in terms these advanced species would understand. His eyes fell on Ben, who was quietly adjusting an environmental control panel in the corner of the room. Ben was not paying attention to the diplomatic crisis unfolding below. He was simply doing his job, making sure everyone in the room was comfortable. You, Crix suddenly called out, pointing a wooden finger at Ben. Human maintenance worker, come down here. Ben looked up in surprise, screwdriver still in his hand. Me? Yes, you. Come down here and answer the question your ambassador cannot. Ben slowly climbed down from his ladder, looking confused and uncomfortable. He stood in front of the assembled alien delegates, still holding his tools. What is your name? Crix asked. Ben Phillips. What do you do, Ben Phillips? Ben glanced nervously at Jake, then back at the intimidating alien delegate. I'm a maintenance worker. I keep the station running. And what specific skills do you possess? Ben shifted uncomfortably. I can fix things. Air systems, gravity generators, food processors. I can cook. I served in the Navy for 20 years. Cooking, Crix said flatly. You cook? Yes, sir. And what makes human cooking special? What makes your food preparation superior to automated systems or specialized chef droids? Ben looked around the room at all the alien faces staring at him. He was not used to being the center of attention, especially in diplomatic situations way above his pay grade. I don't know if it's superior, Ben said honestly. I just try to make food that people need. Explain. Ben took a deep breath. Well, cooking isn't just about nutrition. It's about paying attention to people. Like if someone's stressed, they need different food than if they're tired. If someone's homesick, you try to make something that reminds them of home. If someone's working too hard, you make something that will help them relax. The room was completely silent now. Every alien delegate was staring at this ordinary human maintenance worker. And you can determine these needs how? Dr. Quinn asked, her large eyes focused intently on Ben. You watch people. You listen to them. You notice when they're having a hard time and try to help. This is what humans excel at? Crix asked. Watching and listening? Ben shrugged. I guess. I'm not special. Most humans do this. We notice when someone needs help and we try to help them. Most humans do this? Sure, it's just normal human behavior. Trader Zex's arms had stopped moving entirely. You help others without calculating personal benefit? Why would I calculate benefit from helping someone who's hungry or stressed? General Thax leaned forward in his chair. Human. Are you saying your entire species possesses this ability to observe and respond to the needs of others? Ben looked confused by the question. Well, yeah. Don't all species do that? The alien delegates looked at each other. Some made sounds that might have been surprise or confusion. No, Dr. Quinn said softly. No, we do not. Crick stared at Ben for a long moment. What do you do, human? Summarize your function in simple terms. Ben thought about it, still holding his screwdriver. I'm quiet, but a good cook, he said finally. The room fell completely silent. Ben looked around nervously, wondering if he had said something wrong. Jake Morrison stared at his maintenance worker in amazement. I'm quiet, but a good cook, Crix repeated slowly. Yes, sir. That's about it. The silence stretched on for what felt like hours. Ben shifted uncomfortably, wishing he could return to his work and disappear from all this attention. Finally, Crix spoke again. Return to your duties, human. Ben nodded gratefully and climbed back up to his ladder, leaving the alien delegate staring after him. Below, Jake Morrison waited anxiously to learn whether those simple words had saved humanity's future among the stars. The silence in the conference room stretched on for long minutes after Ben returned to his work. The alien delegates sat motionless, processing what they had just heard. Jake Morrison remained standing, unsure whether to sit down or continue waiting for some response. Finally, General Thax rose from his chair. The massive Karathi warrior looked around the room at his fellow delegates, then back at Ben, who was quietly installing air filters as if nothing had happened. I must speak, Thax said, his deep voice carrying clearly through the chamber. Delegate Vor, the Thoraxian coordinator, nodded. The floor recognizes General Thax of the Karathi Confederation. Thax walked to the center of the room, his armored footsteps echoing. 3 days ago, I arrived at this station prepared to reject humanity's application for council membership. I saw them as weak, unremarkable beings with nothing to offer our civilization. Jake felt his heart sinking. This sounded like the beginning of a rejection speech. But something unexpected happened, Thax continued. For the first time in decades of diplomatic missions, someone noticed that I was struggling, not with military strategy or tactical planning, but with something far more basic. I was stressed, far from home, and eating poorly because of it. He gestured toward Ben, who was pretending not to listen while working. That human noticed. Without being asked, without expecting anything in return, he prepared food specifically designed to help with my stress. Not just any food, but exactly what my body needed at that moment. Thax paused, looking around at the other delegates. In 200 years of Karathi military service, no one has ever cared whether I was eating properly. We are warriors, we endure. We do not complain about discomfort. But this human saw past my armor and noticed that I was hurting. Dr. Quinn stood up next, her pale blue skin almost glowing in the chamber's lights. I also wish to speak. The floor recognizes Dr. Quinn of the Zelani Collective. Dr. Quinn's voice was soft but steady. My species prides itself on intelligence above all else. We solve complex problems, create advanced technologies, and expand the boundaries of knowledge. But we have also become isolated from others because of our focus on pure logic. She glanced toward Ben. That human accomplished something our greatest minds consider impossible. He analyzed my psychological state, determined my nutritional needs, and provided exactly the right combination of nutrients to reduce my anxiety while maintaining cognitive function. He did this not through mathematical calculation, but through simple observation and caring. Dr. Quinn's large black eyes reflected the chamber lights. For the first time in years, someone noticed that I was anxious and tried to help, not to solve a logical problem or gain information from me, but simply because he saw that I was uncomfortable. Trader Zex stood up from his chair, his 6 arms moving in slow, deliberate patterns. I request permission to address the council. Granted. The Vexari measure everything in terms of efficiency and profit, Zex said, his voice buzzing with emotion. We calculate optimal outcomes for every situation. We have created economic models that span the galaxy, but we have forgotten how to simply care about individuals. His arms gestured toward the ceiling where Ben was working. That human increased my work efficiency by 23% through a simple act of kindness. But more importantly, He did it without calculating any benefit for himself. He saw that I was exhausting myself and provided exactly what I needed to maintain steady energy levels. Sex's voice grew quieter. In our economic model, such behavior is impossible. Actions without calculated self-benefit do not exist in Vexari mathematics. Yet this human proved our models wrong. One by one, the other delegates stood to speak. The Thoraxian delegate talked about how Ben had noticed their discomfort with the artificial lighting and quietly adjusted it. The Crystari representative mentioned how he had modified the electromagnetic fields to be less disruptive to their energy-based physiology. Each delegate had a similar story. Small gestures, quiet observations, simple acts of care that no one else had ever provided. Ben had noticed what each being needed and had quietly provided it, expecting nothing in return. Jake Morrison listened in amazement as these powerful aliens described his maintenance worker as if he were some kind of miracle. But slowly he began to understand what they were really saying. Delegate Crick stood up last. "I have heard enough testimony. I will now explain what has become clear to me during these 3 days." The room fell silent again. Crick's wooden features were unreadable, but their voice carried a weight that demanded attention. "Every species in this council evolved to excel in one particular area," Crix began. "The Karathi became the galaxy's greatest warriors, but they struggle with peace and diplomacy. The Zelani became the most intelligent beings in known space, but they have difficulty with social interaction and emotional understanding." Crix gestured to the other delegates. "The Vexari optimized themselves for economic efficiency, but they lost the ability to act without calculating profit. The Crystari mastered energy manipulation, but they became disconnected from organic life. Each of us gained incredible abilities by sacrificing others." The Thoraxian delegate walked to the center of the room. "But humans never specialized. They remained generalists. We saw this as weakness, as a failure to evolve properly. We were wrong." Crix pointed up at Ben, who was trying very hard to look invisible while doing his work. "That human possesses an ability we have all lost in our pursuit of excellence. He can observe any being, understand their needs, and respond appropriately. Not because of advanced technology or superior intelligence, but because he simply cares." The room buzzed with quiet conversations as delegates discussed this revelation among themselves. "Consider what we have witnessed," Crix continued. "A single human, with no special training in xenopsychology or diplomatic protocol, successfully identified and addressed the specific needs of representatives from 12 different species. He did this effortlessly, intuitively, without calculation or expectation of reward." General Thax nodded heavily. "He saw what our own species specialists failed to notice about us. This suggests," Dr. Quinn added thoughtfully, "that humanity's lack of specialization is actually a unique form of specialization. They specialize in understanding others." Trader Zex's arms moved in excited patterns. "The economic implications are staggering. A species that can intuitively understand the needs of any other species could revolutionize galactic cooperation. More than that," Crix said firmly, "they could heal the gaps that our specializations have created. They could help us remember how to be more than just our functions." Delegate Vor called for order. "We have heard testimony from all council members. Are we ready to vote on humanity's application for membership?" "I call for discussion first," General Thack said. "We must address the question of what role humans would play in the council. What do you propose?" Dr. Quinn asked. Thax looked up at Ben, who was still quietly working. "We have warriors, scientists, traders, growers, builders, and energy shapers. But we have no healers. Not healers of bodies, but healers of the spirit. Beings who can see when others are struggling and know how to help. You propose that humanity serve as galactic counselors?" Trader Zex asked. "I propose that humanity serve as galactic humans," Thax replied. "Let them be what they are. Let them notice what we miss. Let them care when we forget how." The discussion continued for another hour, but the outcome was no longer in doubt. When the vote was finally called, it was unanimous. Delegate Vor stood to announce the decision. "By unanimous consent of all council species, humanity is hereby accepted as a full member of the Galactic Council." Jake Morrison nearly collapsed with relief. His team cheered quietly, afraid to be too loud in the formal chamber. "However," Vor continued, "there is one condition." Jake's heart stopped. "What condition?" Or pointed up at Ben, who had finished his work and was packing up his tools. That human, the quiet one who cooks. We want him to address the council before the session ends. Ben looked down in horror. Me address the council? I don't know anything about diplomacy. You know something more important. Crix called up to him. You know how to be human. Ben reluctantly climbed down from his ladder and stood before the assembled delegates. He still held his tool bag, looking completely out of place among the galaxy's most powerful beings. I don't really have anything important to say, Ben began. You have already said it, General Thax replied gently. You said you are quiet but a good cook. It was enough. Ben looked around at all the alien faces staring at him with something that looked like respect. I just try to help when I can. It's not complicated. No, Dr. Quinn said softly. It is not complicated. That is what makes it remarkable. Delegate Vor stood up. Ben Phillips of Earth, your simple words have become the foundation of a new era in galactic relations. Quiet but a good cook. These words will be remembered. As the session ended and delegates began filing out, many stopped to speak with Ben. They thanked him, asked questions about human nature, and expressed wonder at his ability to see their needs so clearly. Ben answered as best he could, but he still seemed confused by all the attention. To him, he had just done what felt natural. He had noticed people who needed help and had tried to help them. Jake Morrison approached Ben as the chamber